more, right? Because I think at the end of the day, Web3 is here to stay. I'm 100% Web3 is here to stay. If not, I would cut my dick off, right? I think this is definitely here to stay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
GM, guys. I'm opening the show with the ABCs again. If you don't know, it's Asia focused, builder friendly, and cool vibes only. We are bringing you another cool builder so you can get to know him a little bit more. This show is powered by Memeland, the home of Captains, Potatoes, MVP, and Steakland. And my name is Karen. I'm your co-host as well as head of social for Memeland.
Hey, everybody, I'm Casey. I'm a community builder, and Karen and I love talking to founders and creators, and we're excited to be able to bring this show to you live from the GM Show studios in Hong Kong every week, where Karen and I chat to the most exciting builders in the Web3 space.
Yeah, if you're excited to be here, show off some love again, emoji love on X, YouTube, and Twitch, where we're broadcasting live so you can see our faces and also some cool video footage. If you just want to listen to the show, we also have spaces ready for you so you can choose whatever you like.
Yes, 2, 3, 4 great ways to enjoy the GM Show every week. Just remember, we're here live every Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Hong Kong time. And then you can see at the bottom, like when the other times are. Before we begin, let's hear a quick word from our chairman.
What is discussed on the GM Show is not investment advice. We may or may not have ownership interests in the projects we are talking about, but this is not investment advice in any way, shape, or form. And this is not Sir David Attenborough.
Great. Let's start the show.
All right. Hey, so in theme of this week's guest, I want to ask you, Karen, what is your, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say Dragon Ball?
Well, if you don't know, in Hong Kong, for me, it's very special. And also for me, it's a very forbidden show almost, because when I was growing up, the show only airs at midnight because apparently it's not safe for kids here in Hong Kong. So like it's almost like a midnight show that like my parents won't allow me to watch, and I was really, trying to secretly watch it. But also, obviously growing up knowing that, this whole culture is like influencing the not just Asia but the whole world.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I remember that too. I was in Hong Kong when it was on midnight, and I was always like, how come it's on at midnight? It's so strange, right? But if you look at it today, yeah, it's not for kids, that show, right? There's a lot of weird stuff, especially when he was a little kid, when the Son Goku's a little kid, before it goes into Dragon Ball Z. Another fun fact about it as well is that they played the Dragon Ball, the original ones, when he's a little kid in the States, and it just didn't fly. I guess that comedy and the action was not good enough. But then they skipped ahead to Dragon Ball Z, and then that's when it became a huge success, right? I think everyone around the world definitely knows what it is. And so that's why, we haven't had a chance to talk about it yet. But a few weeks ago, we lost the legend in the anime world. The creator of Dr. Slump and Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama, passed away at the young age of 68. So as we know, we both grew up with the character and all his friends and all his characters, and through the manga, through the anime, through video games, the movies. His artwork holds a very special place in my heart specifically, and I think to millions of fans around the world. Seeing this news spread around the world from Latin America to Europe, across the US, it just shows how big anime has become and how a lot of millennials today grew up with the wave one of anime, which included Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon, things like that, paving the way for characters that were inspired by Dragon Ball, like Naruto, Jujutsu Kaisen and Demon Slayer and so much more.
Yeah.
And of course, because of that, the global anime market was valued at 26 billion US dollars in 2021, grew to $28 billion in 2022, and is expected to hit $60 billion in 2030. So that's in the next like 6 years, right? That includes all the animation, video games, and of course, the merchandise. So it's a great time to see anime go global. And now we have this new company called SFT Studios, who's behind the San FranTokyo brand. And we're going to talk to them about how they're bringing anime to Web3 with investors like Animoca Brands and Dapper Labs. They are building a site called Weeb Box. It's an officially licensed anime figurine and collectible store. And they're working with IP like Ghost in the Shell, Afro Samurai, and they are preparing for their Visions collection mint. You know, I'm a big anime figure collector, Karen, so I'm excited to learn more about who our guest is today.
Yes, today's guest is an experienced multidisciplinary entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience with global organizations, coming from Web 2 to Web 3. Following the successful exit for his last venture, he's now all in on Web 3 and anime culture as co-CEO at SFT Studio. Please welcome to the GM show the co-founder and co-CEO of San FranTokyo, DT David Tay.
Wow.
GM David.
GM. What an intro. Love it. I wish every single interviewer's space was like that. Epic.
We did our homework for sure.
Love it. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
GMDT, how's everything going with you these days?
Yeah, good. Busy, you know. I think that, you know, in Web3, everything moves so quickly, yet everything at the same time doesn't move quick enough. And we're constantly in a state of, you know, trying to keep up to date with the current meta. But yeah, I'm, you know, pumped to be here, grateful to be here, you know, content and just building and enjoying the space, enjoying life, and just doing everything I can just to try to move everything forward.
Before we get an interview, what is your favorite character created by Akira Toriyama?
It's a good question. You know, I'm a father, so I think Vegeta is probably my favorite, actually. You know, he has
really nice.
It is that he has that villain arc.
Yeah.
But you know, in Dragon Ball Super and you know Dragon Ball Kai as well, like you start to see his fatherly side. I have a thing with that as well. Even like in Naruto as well. Like Minato is my favorite. I'm a girl dad. I've got two girls at home, and every time you see these badass sort of characters have a soft side, that definitely rings a lot of affinity for me.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha is definitely an anime generation for sure, because I think they have more exposure and probably more into the culture than we were, because there's so many different platforms to expose to them.
Man, that's a really good point. You know, you talked about Dragon Ball in Hong Kong. I remember the very first time I watched it. It was on VHS cassette. You know, we're sort of starting to age ourselves now, right? And it was in Cantonese. I don't speak Cantonese.
Wow, that's a bootleg for sure.
Yeah, 100% bootleg. You know, and back in the day, you know, we would go to the sort of, you know, I'm from Melbourne. There's a district called Springvale in Melbourne. So I don't know, and it's like the Asian district where back in the 80s, everybody immigrated. Like the immigration sort of ride came from Vietnam, Cambodia, you know, all of that, and they all congregated in two cities, two suburbs. Springvale was one of them, and that's where we grew up, and that's where I still sort of am now. But they had these video library stores. Like you'd go in and it's like a really tiny shack, and there's like videos everywhere and cassettes everywhere. And you know, I remember my mum actually bringing that home for us. And when I put that on for the first time, it was like nothing I'd seen before. You know, because all the cartoons we'd watched back then were like, you know, very westernized, and then you just had these people just kicking ass, and you're like, what is going on? Yeah. And the original Dragon Ball had some adult scenes, like, you know, sort of adult innuendo as well. So this is weird. I never saw this one. Yeah. On morning cartoons. but yeah, I mean that's really, I think for me anyway, what changed a lot of my perception on anime in the beginning. So
Yeah, Oolong the pig. His first wish with the Dragon Ball was a pair of women's panties, right? Like you would think, how is this a cartoon? What's going on in
right,
Japan?
right,
Right?
exactly. And I think the generation, you're right as well. You know, Karen, the generation today. I've got a couple of nephews too. Like anime culture has bleeds. It's completely bled into pop culture. You know,
Oh,
my
yeah.
nephews are more up to date with anime than I am. I just don't have the time anymore. I try to jump in. Read the
Your
manga.
little nephews know more about anime than
They
you
do. They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have streaming parties. You know, they're
Wow.
on Discord. They're watching anime as together as friends. They're,
Yeah.
you know, they know more series than I do these days because they just have time and everything's so accessible through Crunchyroll. You know, back in the day, I had to go to the video library and there was like one
Right.
shelf with
Right.
4 manga titles that anime
Right.
titles that I've already watched that I just
Yeah.
borrow again because I wanted to, you know, feel something. Yeah, it's changed. Anime culture is eating up the world. So
Yeah. And you probably
Definitely.
saw recently. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Karen.
Sorry, I was just saying the millennials are racing the anime generation for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
I'm sure you saw recently in the States, McDonald's did the McDonald's
Yes.
promotion, right?
Yes.
So they're actually using the fake McDonald's that are in anime since the 80s as their brand for this campaign. And they've released manga and anime as their marketing campaign. And I was just in the States recently and I saw it's just a sauce. They're doing all this promotion just for a sauce. But they know like McDonald's marketing team is so great, right? They're like riding on the fact that, you know, McDonald's was like a trope in anime, and they actually brought it out to the public. That says a lot, right? That's like that's in the middle America. We'll see that, right? So everybody's kind of like behind this thing. So
I saw
pretty
the
exciting
activation.
stuff.
I saw the activation as well. Like they
Yeah.
went all out. They went all out.
They went
So,
all out. Yeah.
I love to see it. Love to see it. You know,
Yeah,
empowering
that's great.
anime culture at a global scale is what the mission is.
Awesome.
Okay, great. All right, let's get into the interview. We asked the same 20 questions to each week's guests to get some insight into their day-to-day life, what inspires them, and what lessons can they pass on to the next generation building in Web3. Karen, what's the first question?
Yes, I'm sure anime is going to mention in some of these questions for sure. But the warm-up first question is, what's the one app you have on your phone that not many people do?
That not many people do. I'm a pretty boring guy, so I don't really have anything too special. I mean, I've got the app that my kids need for school, so which I'm really bad at using and referencing. I've got TFT.
Definitely nobody has that except for the people that are in the school where your kids go.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so different these days, you know. So you know, you can actually tell the school if the kid, you know, going to be late and all that sort of. I mean, growing up, you know, it was very.
Oh
different.
wow.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but TFT is probably the other one, but I wouldn't say that no one has it. I mean, you know, Teamfight Tactics, I think, is a bit of a guilty pleasure whenever I have time. But other than that, no, I'm pretty boring. There's not much else that's too unique, I guess.
You're not watching anime on your phone?
I'm watching it on the TV. Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
exactly. Good man. Yeah. Don't watch that on the phone.
You know, it's a family affair anime at this household.
Oh,
so,
good.
yeah. So we've got like more TVs than we do people in the house, and you know, so we usually watch it together. Like at the moment, you know, this is probably a story for anyway. I'll tell you. So basically, you know, we talk about Dragon Ball, but you know, Naruto, when I first started dating my wife, early days, we've been together since 2000 actually. So pretty early on in the relationship, we started watching Naruto end to end, and it was, you know, it was a great experience, you know, and that was really a period where, you know, a lot of that influenced me. And then now my kids at 12 and 8, going on 13 and 9, we decided to try Naruto with them because my youngest one, I wasn't sure if she could keep up. Because we're not going to watch it. It all has to be, you know, subbed. No dubbing, basically. Otherwise, it's not. You know, it just feels weird. So we wanted to make sure she could keep up and read, right?
Yeah.
And she could. So we're like, okay, that's it. Let's do it. So we end up watching it end to end. You know, Naruto all the way through the end of Shippuden with the kids. So it's generational. We've taken it to the next generation. You said we're raising weebs. We are, and it's become so much more special for us anyway. That series in particular. So.
Oh, that's a great story.
That's great. Next question. What is the book that you've given most as a gift and why?
Oh, books. I mean, My wife is a big reader, so she's notorious for disappearing when she finds a good book, and she's a bit of a speed reader too. So for her 30th, actually, I don't usually give books for birthdays or presents in that, but for her 30th, I organized a surprise party for her, and I actually bought her. She does a lot of digital book read, like she reads a lot of it through digital PDFs and ebooks and stuff like that. So we had this pretty empty bookshelf that we didn't really have much in it because she does it all digital. So I ended up buying her like 20 books to try to fill that shelf, and we had a party, and I invited all her friends and family, and I actually asked everyone to bring a book to try to fill her shelf. So she ended up with about 100 books actually for her 30th, and we basically filled that bookshelf up. So yeah, that's probably the only really story I have about giving books. Otherwise, it's just more comics and manga really, but I don't give them to people. I sort of just selfishly keep them to myself.
Great. Okay, next question is, what is something that has greatly influenced your life? Is it anime? Is it manga? I want to know.
Yeah. I mean, my family, parents, I think is a big one. As a family of immigrants, first generation, I think that's been a huge one for a lot of, I think, Australian Asians or Western Asians. When you're younger, you don't really see it as much, and you just sort of shrug it off as them just trying to lecture you. But when you get a bit older and they start to tell you the actual stories of, what they've gone through, definitely has greatly influenced, me as a person, as an individual, and, realizing at times when things feel tough, it's actually not as tough as what it probably is. And we probably have it easy in the grand scheme of things. And then 100% anime, like I mentioned before, Naruto, I think is probably by far holds a special place in my heart, just mainly because of all the values and all of the stories that have been told through that, and then also the people that I've shared it with. It's one of those ones is going to be a generational legacy, and I think for me, having watched it with my kids and now being able to connect with them on that as well has dramatically improved life at home, I think, as well, in many respects. And we were a pretty close-knit family, but we recently took the kids to Japan as well. I was doing some work out there, and they tagged along, and the amount of stuff they came back with, had we not got them into anime, I think they enjoyed it 10 times more. Having gone through that experience.
Oh, many more Naruto themes birthday parties to come.
100%.
I think like Naruto was going to be like Dragon Ball, right? They're just going to keep it coming out, just change like who's in it and add a letter at the end or something. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the originals, like it's hard. Like I think that with with Boruto, like we haven't really connected with it as much. Sort of that next generation, because as well, you start to see a lot of the older generation that we connected with start to, basically start to die, and you're like, what are you doing this? Like, it's not.
Well, Dragon Ball GT wasn't very good. A lot of people don't like that one, right? Exactly. So, but it still bounced back after that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they've gone back, done Super and gone back to the old.
This is going to become an anime conversation now. Okay, let's move on to the next question here. Here's a technical question. Besides your smartphone, what is the one gadget or product in your life that makes it better? It could be a pair of running shoes, which we get a lot. It could be a rice cooker. It could be, and people even say like AirPods, but what is something in your life that makes it better?
Two things, actually. The coffee machine.
Yeah, okay.
I became a self-taught barista during COVID, and slowly perfecting my own latte art, which has been.
What kind of machine do you have?
It's just a Breville, but it was a proper one where you can actually grind and froth the milk yourself. So I think during COVID, I used that opportunity to skill up, and something my wife definitely appreciates. Every morning she's there waiting for her daily coffee. So that's
nice.
Good. But that's my job. The other thing is probably my Fitbit, actually, because I think there was a period where when back in before Web3, like where I was just really trying to optimize as much as I could, get the most out of myself, and I went down this big rabbit hole of how to better myself and looking at all my own sort of I had this thing where we spend so much time analyzing data around what we do in business and all this other stuff, but we never really actually look at the data about ourselves. So I went down this rabbit hole, did like the heritage tests and DNA tests, and started to look at biohacking, all that sort of stuff. But then just really trying to understand a little bit more about me. So the Fitbit since has become a bit of a tool actually that I think anyway has really helped. Trying to understand my sleep patterns and understand how much how much I'm working out and how much I'm not working out and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
So yeah, probably my Fitbit.
Yep, good.
Great. Okay, let's start the therapy session. What was an early job you had that you're learning an important lesson from?
Oh man, I've done so many things. My very first job, actually, I've always been very, I guess, driven to want to just work and do stuff. So I remember one of the earliest things anyway. So I was, I was still in high school. Mum and dad were like, you don't need to work or anything like that. I actually went and walked to the local mall, started handing out applications. I eventually got a job just stacking shelves. And even though my mum was like, no, you can't. Like when I got the job, she was like, okay, fine, I'll drive you. But that job taught me a lot because I started to make some real money. And at the time, it felt like real money. And my first paycheck, I remember I went and bought a wallet to put my $20 in there. So it felt like a real achievement, And I think that was quite pivotal. I was only, I think in year 9, so however old that was, it was like, okay, cool. I can actually put in hard work and actually just provide for myself. So that was really, really pivotal. And then I guess the other thing is I started and built my own agency, my own business. That taught me a lot about myself actually. When going into full entrepreneurship, I spent over 10 years in corporate. And I learned a fraction of what I did in corporate than I did when I started my own business. More about myself, my own limits, my mentality, how to deal with people, how to deal with business. Starting a business is hard, like infinitely hard. But I think what you learn about yourself is so tremendously valuable. But yeah, I don't know if that answers this question.
Yep, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, we know we have 2 daughters. So what does a normal day look like for you? What's your daily routine? How do you balance your work and your family?
Yeah, I'm a night owl. So I actually have a technical background, a comp sci degree, and I think it's a bit of a stereotype that engineers and coders just work all throughout the night. I think for me, it's just maybe the quiet and the calm. So for me, I don't get up crazy early. My day usually starts maybe like 7:45, 8 o'clock. I usually try to get up just to see the kids, so spend a little bit of time with them before they go to school. These days, I'm actually in my home office, which is great, and I can sort of do most of what I need to here. But I usually get up, shower, and then make myself a coffee, make myself and the wife a coffee, have my supplements, all that sort of stuff. And then usually I'm just working the rest of the day. I try to take out in my calendar. I have it booked out every day. I haven't been going, but I have an hour booked out to go to the gym and go shoot some hoops. I've been really bad with that over the past few months, but I need to get back into that. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much my day. I'm constantly working. One of the biggest challenges I think with that is in the early days, I've heard a lot as well that puts a lot of strain on family relationships at times if you're constantly working. But I'm fortunate because I guess I've been this way for a very long time. And I think that my wife is, we have our moments, but she's definitely understanding. She knows that's how I'm wired. And, the kids sort of know that, I'm probably always just cooped up, just working. So, and I try to block off as much time as I can to give time back to them. But yeah, it's not all that glamorous, to be honest. That's just how it is. Yeah, that's my routine.
Great.
Web3 dad support group. We definitely need one.
Where do I sign? Yeah.
Yeah. What is the next question is, what is an unusual habit that you have?
Ooh. I think I'm pretty hard on myself, just because I'm always trying to push for more, never really content, in the grand scheme of things. My wife would probably tell you that, I just if I'm frustrated or I get into these modes, like I just make random noises, like maybe just to vent in frustration. So I get a lot of that. So she often jokes, you know, she knows when I'm in a certain mood because I'll be like just walking around the house making random noise. So that's probably a weird habit. Yeah.
Okay, great. Now we know you learned how to make coffee during the pandemic, but what other new belief or behavior or habit has most improved your life? Usually, and the Fitbit and the coffee are definitely two things. Is there anything else you can add to that?
You know, I've always believed during this whole, you know, I mentioned before, like when I was running the business, you know, I was always trying to find an edge. You know, everything I was trying to do, like there's a lot of self-learning, self-improvement, self-help, and all that sort of stuff. So one thing that really stuck with me while I was trying to be the best version of myself was, you know, I remember hearing it somewhere in a podcast or reading it somewhere, but you know, the statement of, you know, how you do one thing is how you do everything has really stuck with me. You know, and I think it's so true that, you know, if you you know, if you can really show a high level of quality and attention to one thing, it's usually a good sign of how you would normally tackle everything. You know, don't half-ass, you know, the first thing. If you're trying to be the best at what you know, of what you're trying to do, then you know, focus on the little things and do it well. So yeah, that's always really stuck with me. You know, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Great. The next question is like, when you feel overwhelmed, what do you do and how do you relax?
The kids, I think. I mean, the kids for me are a nice. I mean, they don't care about what's going on in my world, and they provide a bit of grounding. So the youngest one actually is a real, like, you know, girls are different. Like, she knows how to make me feel bad and tug at the heartstrings, but it definitely does ground me. And the older one will say things that, you know, I know she means well, and she can see if I'm overwhelmed or if I'm stressed, and she'll say things to try to comfort me. So I think that the kids, you know, my wife is obviously a very amazing soundboard and super supportive. So, you know, the kids are definitely, you know, will be my go-to if I'm feeling a certain way. You know, and anyone that I think tries to do anything beyond just a 9 to 5, I think will always, not to discount and discredit people that are obviously doing regular corporate jobs, but I think it's a different level of anxiety and stress and all that when you're trying to do something, you know, beyond yourself. But yeah, the family knows that, and I have that network there, which is good. But otherwise, yeah, no, I'll just be, you know, it sounds cheesy, but I'll just be playing games or, you know, watching anime or reading manga or whatever it might be. Like, it's just, or just doing stuff I don't really have to think.
Yeah,
that's how I relax.
Cool. All right, here's a deep question. What is one failure you've experienced, and how did you overcome it?
So many. I don't know. Like when I think in business, you know, that's really where the failures stack up, and there are a lot of little things and some pretty big ones as well in terms of business. I think, like, if I was to bring up a specific example, you know, when I had the agency, trying to scale, I think, is always a challenge, and trying to make the right decisions as to how to scale, in many cases, is really trial and error. I think in business as well, like, you know, like I was always trying to obviously learn from other people and get advice and whatnot, and try to apply, you know, what others are doing. But what I realized over time is that what you do and your business isn't, you know, is not the same as what that other business is. There's always these nuances. They have different people, so what they applied weren't necessarily, you know, you couldn't lift and shift that. So I think there's a lot of trial and error, you know, hiring the wrong people, you know, trying to make it work. Going back to a very specific example, I think one big failure I had in that business was I think I took it too personally, trying to provide for certain people in the company. And I learned after I sold that business, you know, I came up with a list of 10 commandments of things that I should try to, you know, do better going into the future. And one of them was, you know, you're not Mother Teresa. You know, you're trying to run a business. Obviously, try to be good to the people that are around you. But you know, I had one very early staff member or employee at that agency that I spent a lot of time with him, and he was, he was expelled from school 3 or 4 times. His mother was in jail. He was, trying to get his life on track. His brother was in drugs, and so I was like, look, maybe I can help this guy. He has some technical ability. I can groom him up to be a really good high paid designer. Spent a ton of time with him, and in the end, like, I gave him so many allowances that it actually detrimented the business, because everyone saw how much how much I was willing to look past because of all the issues that he brought. But I still felt like an obligation to, because I was trying to give this guy a chance. He had ultimately, and it's not an easy one as well, because he then got diagnosed with, what is it? He got diagnosed with like ADD, and then he got diagnosed like with, split personality and all this other stuff. And
wow.
There was times where he just like smashed his computer and walked out. And to make matters worse, he then started dating one of the other. I said from very beginning, like no internal dating, but they sort of started dating anyway with my 2IC at the time, and they were responsible. They tried to keep it under the wraps and just to prove that they could do it. And then after 6 months, they told me, and I was like, okay, cool, like fine, you guys, were able to do it successfully for 6 months. But then after they told me, that's when things started to go downhill. I remember being in a meeting, I got a message from my 2IC, and she's like, look, he's like, so-and-so's like threatening to kill himself and all this other stuff. And I don't know, all of this snowballed. And I got to a point where, I was just, my wife started to worry. She's like, this guy's crazy. What if he tries to like attack you as you go into the car park at, after hours or whatever? So when I talk about failures, and I think that it was a great lesson, I think, to learn, but I think how I handled it, I just got too attached, and I wasn't as, I probably didn't make the best decisions because I just got too emotionally involved in it. But yeah, I had to overcome it. In the end, I just said, look, we just can't do this. I've got to let you go and let you figure out, life is not this is not how you improve. I can't keep giving you allowances. But yeah, tough lesson, but definitely won't make that mistake again.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, for sure. The next question is, what is the best investment you've ever made, and what were the returns? Is it your money, your time, or your energy, or is it on yourself?
Yeah, I feel like these are getting really deep and philosophical. And I hope I'm not the only one giving these sort of responses, because now I feel like I'm on a, I don't know, like a.
I'll let it out.
As cheesy as it is, like, I think my family, I think that for as long as I can remember, I've always mentally sort of bucketed my life into a few different areas, and family, success, and wealth was always the last bucket that I would focus on. I would always mentally like do them all simultaneously, but I know that I could never really focus all my time and attention if the other buckets weren't at 100%. So, health, family, just all of that other stuff is where I've always dedicated a lot of time and attention to try to make sure it's at its optimal, and that there's, to be fair, our household is a very, we try to keep everything. It's not like we're all sort of here singing Kumbaya every night and, just, singing, it's not all unicorns and rainbows, but, I'm happy, I'm content. If I disappeared off the earth tomorrow, in life, in wealth, in money, in happiness, in family, in love, I'd actually be okay. I'd be okay with that. So the final obstacle that is probably a never-ending obstacle for me is just continuing to grow and build, and that's sort of where I am now. So, yeah, I think the best investment and best return is just trying to find happiness and stay content, and that's by making sure the rest of the buckets outside of what I'm dedicating all my time to now is at 100%. And if that ever falls and goes below, then I have to take time away from what I'm doing to go back and make sure I fix it before I go back.
Great.
Okay, next question. Who is someone you look up to And what is your favorite quote from him or her?
I've always been a big fan of Musk, actually. As most people do, and I don't want to fanboy over him, but I think that he's a nerd. He's a nerd. He's a cool nerd at the end of the day. And I think a lot of us in Web3 probably resonate with that. Where I think growing up watching anime, like comic books and games, but Musk is definitely he's living his true self. He doesn't give a shit about anyone. He's like he can he just does what he believes in. I think one of the quotes I think he said, like, if something's important enough to you, then you should try it. You should do it, even if you're going to fail. So he famously was saying, like, he thought Tesla was, had a very small chance of succeeding, and SpaceX even more so. But it's what he really truly believed in. It's what he really truly wanted to do. And if he didn't step up to try to face those challenges and try to tackle them head on, as much criticism and shit that he gets, he without a doubt sort of moved humanity forward, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely would say Musk.
Okay.
So this is my favorite question. What is the one conventional wisdom that you disagree with?
That you should quit your job and follow your dreams. Not everyone should. Not everyone is cut out to. And, not everyone should lay it all on the line, because not everyone, I think, can withstand the demand and pressure it puts on you. In my early days when I started business, I had a lot of friends that were like, oh, I've had this great idea, or I'd love to try it. And I was always very encouraging in the beginning. I was like, yeah, you should, why not just take some time out and try and do it? And, if this was what you really want. But then after a while, I was like, nah, fuck it, stay in your job. Like, you probably, if you've been talking about this for the last 6 years, you probably shouldn't. But yeah, everyone sort of says, do that. I think people should follow their dreams, but they should do it in a way that, is calculated. It's a way, they're strategic. They're not basically just going all into something that they don't necessarily fully understand, and that looks rosy from the other side, because it's not always what it seems. Definitely follow, but just do it. Don't quit your job straight away. Maybe quit your job later on once there's some success.
Okay, that's a good answer for the next question, but let's see if you have another one. What is one piece of advice you would give to a first-time founder, specifically in Web3, seeing what you've learned, building what you're building now?
That was a good answer for this one. If you enjoy getting kicked in the nuts every day, then go and be a founder.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. Then go and be a founder. Like, it's, being a founder, I think, and this is what, people don't, a lot of the conversations I had in traditional business, and now even more so in Web3, it's tough, because, I think even Musk was saying, like, if you're sitting at the top, you are the one that has to deal with all the other stuff that other people can't. And usually that's the shit stuff. Like, that's all the stuff that bubbles to the surface that just is, the reason why it's on your desk is because no one else can deal with it, and it's shit. So, and you're basically firefighting half the time. So yeah, and I think that if you want to be a founder, like, that's in the job description. You need to be the one to make those decisions, and it's a lot of pressure for some people. And I think that not everyone's wired that way. And I often try to tell people there's nothing wrong with being number 2, number 3, number 10, number 20. It's something that you believe in, something that is also being, is aligned with your views and what you're truly trying to build. You don't have to be the final go-to person, because again, it's not suited for everyone. So
yeah, absolutely. The next question is, like, what is the worst piece of advice you ever received? Is it from a VC? Is it from some other founders?
Oh man, I know this is supposed to, like, it was meant to be more, I guess, maybe businessy, but I think this is maybe gonna be controversial, but I guess when people tell you how to raise your kids, I think that's that's probably the one, right? Like every kid's different, but sometimes people have very opinionated, oh, you should do this and you should do that. So, well, no, like your kid's a brat, mine's not, so that's not going to work. Or, you know, I think that, yeah, sometimes people are very opinionated about that, and everyone has the right to their own opinion, but I think that, you know, how people, like when people try to push their views on how to raise kids, I think that, you know, that's probably the worst advice. Generally.
Well, you mentioned a lot about your family and your kids. Like, do they understand what is Web3 and do they know what you're doing?
Yeah, look, my wife's a bit of a geek as well, so she gets it, which helps. You know, she doesn't. She like my. If you can see the kids' rooms, like they're all collectors, so they understand that mentality. There's so many soft toys in their rooms, it's ridiculous. And my wife, she's, you know, she's just a hoarder. Like she's, you know, her collection of jewelry and handbag, all that stuff. It's I don't even pay attention anymore. I don't even know what's going on. But so they understand that side of it, and I think, you know, again, my wife is, you know, she's digital native as well. You know, so you know we, you know, sort of been dating for a while. She's a gamer. You know, you know, so she understands the tech side as well, and she's also a BA. So I think. You know, from that, I don't have to explain much. She gets it, and you know, because I'm always talking about it as well, I think that sort of has flowed into, like, through osmosis. She sort of gets it as well. So when she often says as well, sometimes she'll be at work or she'll be, you know, with friends or whatever, and someone will mention something, and she'll be like, "I actually know all that." And my kids, I've actually tried to explain it to them as well, just to see how much they understand. And when I draw analogies to what they're doing through their games and through their, you know, their current digital lives, they're like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." And then they just go on about their day. So yeah, you know, that definitely, I think the next generation are well positioned to, you know, make the most of what we're, like, the foundations that we're trying to build today.
Wow. Your family's awesome. Very like a tech family.
Tech family.
Just a geeky, nerdy family, basically.
Yeah,
It's,
exactly.
Cool. All right. The next question we already know the answer to. So we'll, you know, we usually ask people, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, or Elon Musk, why? No context, just to see what they say. So you're definitely an Elon fan. What have you seen this Don Lemon interview he did recently?
Yeah.
That have you seen that? That's that was quite an interview. I don't know. What do you think about that? When you see that, what are your thoughts about it, just in general?
Yeah, I haven't watched it all end to end, but I've watched the snippets. You know, I mean, from the sound bites and the parts that I have seen, I can understand, and again, like without the full context of the entire end-to-end interview, I can understand why there was some frustration coming out of Musk. You know, just because, you know, like Don's reporting style wasn't it didn't feel like a genuine conversation. It felt like he was being interrogated from what I saw.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think because of that, you know, it's funny, Elon gets a lot of, I don't want to sound like a fanboy, but Elon gets a lot of hate for trying to have a platform that's, you know, trying to encourage free speech. And obviously because of that, as humans and as a society, we're just naturally bad. Like we you know, it's so there's going to be bad that comes out of it, but there's also so much good that comes out of it as well. And, you know, I think that in the case of that interview, I think people are always just trying to find a way to bring people down, you know, and I think putting words in his mouth in some certain instances, the ones that I've heard, you know, there was more sincerity that I heard from Musk just trying to be himself versus the interviewer. And I think when I sense that, it's like straight away, I'm like, okay, well, I can understand why he's getting pissed, because he just can't have a proper conversation. And they're just trying to find things to take out of proportion, you know, trying to invoke certain responses from it. So, yeah.
I think every founder should watch that and just, you know, see, this is the worst case interview you could ever have, where they just have a grudge against you and just want to like grind into you and make you look like the bad guy. Because how can you be responsible for that many people all the time? But and yeah, that's the other thing. I think, and then that'll probably lead into the last question I always like to ask, just about like, you know, this guy, they always focus on the bad, right? Everybody focus on the bad part of Web3, but they never look at the good side and what benefits that come out of it. They just like to grind it because it's a good story, it's a clickbait story, whatever. So interesting. Okay. Anyways, Karen.
Yeah, let's go into the Web3 side. What got you into Web3 in the first place? What's day one?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, like I've got a technical background, comp sci degree. So from a technical standpoint, when the white paper first came out, the Bitcoin one, I actually skimmed through it. I went through it. This is pretty cool. But I didn't at the time. I wasn't like, oh, okay, I'm going to go all in on this. I wish I did, but I didn't. I was too busy trying to build my career and build business and all that sort of stuff. And as a technology, I was like, okay, there's something there, but it's obviously still very early. It wasn't until actually late 2017, I actually bought some Bitcoin, not some Bitcoin, I bought some crypto just through a colleague as well, because his consultancy was starting to build out blockchain solutions. And he's like, this is all going to start moving soon. And so I just bought a bunch there. And then that cycle started. Everything went to the moon, and I rode it all the way back down to the grave, but like most of us did. So I sort of then discounted it again after that, again kicking myself. But it wasn't until a few years later, I actually then bought NBA Top Shots, because I'm into basketball as well, and play ball. But at the time when I saw it, I was like, this is super cool. Like actually digital collectible cards. So I stayed up in Australia. Like it was like the packs were like raffling in the middle of the night. So I ended up buying some packs. And again, because I was running the business, I sort of was like, this is fun, but I didn't really do anything with it. It wasn't until after I sold the agency, I was like, okay, what do I do next? Because after I sold the agency, I was like lost. I was like, I'll start investing. I'll start working with, VCs and all that sort of stuff. And it was actually a meeting that I had with a VC. After that, I connected with him on LinkedIn, and his LinkedIn profile was a mutant ape. It was a Macy. I was like, what the like, that's weird. Why would he switch his professional photo on LinkedIn?
Exactly.
And it was an ugly one too. It was like a T. It was like a T1.
The mutant apes are gross. Yeah, exactly.
It was bizarre, and I was like, this is weird. Like this, I get it if he swaps it to something like an anime one that looks good, but it was like the T1 snotty nose, and I was like, this is bizarre. So that provoked me to look into it more. And I was like, hey, there's got to be something else here. And from there, I made a decision right then and there. I was like, okay, this is it. This is where the next couple of decades is going to be for me. But yeah, that was really the point where I jumped in.
It's funny you say that, because as like anime fans and people like cartoons, you start seeing people using cartoon images. Like maybe they might use like a Naruto or Dragon Ball, but then all of a sudden there's this weird thing, and you're like, yeah. And on LinkedIn, I saw that too a lot, and that also got me into it and interested in it, right? Because you start to think, what the hell? People are using these cartoon pictures again, and these disgusting ones. It's quite funny to see that, but I think that would be from somebody who had like an anime or comic background, was like looking at that and go, interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the next question then is, what was your first NFT, and what did you learn from it or want to learn from it, and do you still own it?
Yeah, technically, I guess it was Top Shots, but I never really did much with it. I bought some, and I just went through the experience and just see what I pulled, and as I said before, I sort of I just did it, and then. But after after that meeting with the VC, and then I jumped into it, I went straight to OpenSea. I eventually found OpenSea, and I actually, again, I didn't really know much about what was going on. So I just, I managed to get a wallet set up. I moved some ETH over, and I was just browsing, and stupidly, I jumped in, and CryptoKitties was the only one that I'd recognized, because at the time as well, it was the one that had made a lot of noise, and it was the one that was in news and whatnot. So when I saw it, I was like, oh, I actually know this one. So I went in and I bought one, and it was I didn't realize anything about rarity or anything like that. So I bought one, and it was quite expensive at the time too, because ETH was like I think 4,000 or something, 5,000. I think I paid like 0.9 or something. So that whoever got it was laughing, because I think it was probably listed for like, I don't know. It was a stupid decision, but I eventually bought that one, and then soon after that, I bought a Macy and started to really get deep into it. Do I still own that one, that original CryptoKitty? I don't actually, because then after I bought it, and I realized months later, what a mistake I'd made, because it was like by that point there was like hundreds and thousands of CryptoKitties. I just listed it, and eventually it sold. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like I wasn't expecting that to happen. So yeah.
That's interesting, because both of those are Dapper Lab products, and you are also now invested by Dapper Labs. I guess you told them that story, and you got involved. How did you meet with those guys? You say, hey, I have a CryptoKitty. It's going to come and meet you guys?
So Dapper Labs, so the company, the original company, how it all happened actually is quite organic. The original company is called Collection, and the original founders of that company, there was three original founders. So Daisuke Iwase, who's currently the CEO of Animoca Japan, then Jeff Mirahara, who's like a multi-platinum award-winning music producer, J-pop, K-pop, and then there was Fabiano Soriani, who's still an advisor with the company today. But he was actually the lead engineer out at Dapper Labs and on the CryptoKitties project. So he's one of the founding fathers that's responsible for why we call NFTs.
Yeah.
But they had actually invested in Collection during then, and then I came a little bit later when there was a pivot over to anime, and we basically formed SFT Studios within the company, and that's building out San FranTokyo today.
Do you know that it's very, very small, this industry, right? Dapper Labs, CryptoKitties was connected to Animoca. Animoca is from Hong Kong. I found out about CryptoKitties because they used to come to Hong Kong a lot. So Hong Kong, the story of it, I mean, even though Dapper is from Canada, it's like the Hong Kong connection is super strong because Animoca is like such a leader today in everything, and they're based here. And then Dapper is connected to it as well as a big leader as well. So it's kind of crazy how that all connects together.
Yeah. I think that's the thing too. Like, you make a really good point. Like, the space itself is like, it is incredibly small, and I was actually on the call with Shah yesterday too, or Cha, and we were just talking about the same thing, that there's a lot of PvP amongst communities, but the projects and founders themselves, like, we actually all enjoy each other's company, and we are actively trying to support each other to try to build, because there aren't many of us, like ones that are really trying to build to move the space forward.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your audience would love to know more about, like, what are you working on right now? Why now, and why you?
Yeah. So we have San FranTokyo, rewinding a couple, like back a year, when we sort of came up with this idea of San FranTokyo. We looked at all the different things that we have at our disposal. Daisuke basically joining Animoca Japan as CEO. He still serves as CEO of SFT Studios today, which is why I'm co. We're a subsidiary of Animoca Brands. We have an amazing reach and network within Japan, and then obviously to be able to join the Animoca family, there's a lot of resources there. All of those things, and the advisors that we have in Japan, and the connection with the anime industry. When we looked at all those different things, we built out a map and an North Star where we wanted to head. And the mission is always going to be to power anime culture globally, and there's a lot of different ways for us to do that. So all of what we're doing now will continue to contribute towards that. And some of the key things that we've put out that people are starting to see is, around San FranTokyo itself, the lore and the story building, and the community that we want to continue to grow in that space, so we can actually build a place where people can actually, find a home, or have a mix of communities where they can all jointly find a place to spend together to, try to push the narrative of Web3 forward. So that's one of the key initiatives in terms of IP building, brand building, and we're spending a lot of time with, the brand and the IP. So working with the mangaka in Japan to help craft, the lore that's going to be the foundational place for it, and build more, tooling around how we can actually give the community a chance to grow that brand as well. And then there's the product side of things. So WeBox being one of the flagship business models that will exist within. It's similar to how you guys are building Stakeland, within the whole Memeland ecosystem. It's a separate product now that you can start to productize. WeBox is one of the same things as well. Try to build out a sustainable business that can provide real use cases to show the world how we can leverage from the technology to innovate on how we're currently doing things. And as we continue to focus on those two things, there'll be more things that will come along as well. So the Anime Foundation is another one that we're a significant contributor and launch partner for. And that foundation is actually an initiative that has between Animoca Brands, Animoca Japan, ourselves, San FranTokyo, and another fourth major launch partner that's very big in the Web2 space that we haven't publicly announced yet. But the coming together of that is, again, try to work towards a vision that's much greater than ourselves. It's like how to, again, looking at how do we power anime culture globally, the different initiatives, both from a consumer lens, but also from an industry lens of how we can actually try to move that needle forward.
And you are minting something tomorrow, is that correct?
Yes, I've been really looking forward to this. We had a free mint mid last year. It was in the depths of the bear, but it was a Genesis pass that we minted last year, and it was only 2,000 supply. But we wanted to see, how many people in Web3 are actually anime fans. So it was an application gated process. We asked people questions about anime and asked them to link their My Anime List accounts if they had one, so we could see a history of when they created it, what they've been watching. And the responses were funny because you could see which ones were ChatGPT and which ones were not technically proper anime fans. But it turns out there's a fairly substantial overlap, and this was again to further validated the fact that anime culture is bleeding into pop culture. But we were able to build a community from that initial cohort of people that had the Genesis passes, and that's really sustained us till now. Like the guys have been able to really bond and to their credit, they've been able to build a community, but all without having a PFP, all without having a chance for them to really attach themselves to the brand. So this is why I'm really excited about the PFP now, because even though it's been on the roadmap, to get an actual collection out where we can actually have people start to rep and feel like they're actually a real part of the community versus just being a holder of a token that's generic. Really excited about that. So yeah, we've been spending a lot of time on the artwork. I think we're probably going to get a lot more scrutiny just because we are not just an anime inspired project, we're an anime project, that's trying to focus on doing good for the industry for all of that. So I think there's a bit of expectations on our part to try to get that right. But we've built out a little studio in Japan as well, working with quite a few different artists and trying to mesh all that out together to get a good, get a good result. But I'm pretty happy with where it is, and excited to actually get this out to the community and start to grow from there.
Can't wait to see the art.
Yeah.
We put some links out on Twitter, so if you guys have some time, then definitely jump on. I switched over I've been wearing an Azuki for the last 2 years. And just the other day I switched it over. So it was a bit of a bittersweet moment for me because, I definitely have a lot of respect for the Azuki team, and, I spent a lot of time with them as well, and trying to help build it, help to just advocate and grow their brand. But, it's time also now for us to try to do the same for us. So I switched that over yesterday, and see how we go.
Okay, awesome. All right. And then the final question of the day, what is one misconception about Web3 that you would personally like to change?
I feel like this is not going to be a unique answer, but, that it's not just about selling expensive pictures on the internet. That's probably the biggest misconception. I think a lot of people get into it for the financial side of things, and which is fair. There's a bit of degen in all of us, and I think that's what keeps it fun. But there's more to it, and I think maybe having a tech background, I saw the tech first before I saw the money. And I genuinely believe that, this evolution is going to happen. The technology is going to bleed itself into every facet and every industry, whether we like it or not. So the businesses that are getting ready to and prepared for it, the services and products that we're building now in the space will become so much more important, in the years to come. So yeah, I think, it's not just about selling expensive pictures on the internet.
Yeah. Great.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the show. If you, I don't know, would you come to Asia this year?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was out in, because I sometimes I head into the Animoca office as well. So I was in Hong Kong for 8Fest, actually. I think it was the last time.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely will be back. Yeah.
Sweet.
Very good.
So we might see you in Hong Kong. We can grab some lunch and talk about
Love
anime. We talk
I love it.
It'll be
We're
a
so-
long lunch for sure.
Yeah. We'll definitely pull you guys up on that. Yeah.
So
Definitely.
thank you so much. Don't forget to follow us. If you like the show, it's GM Show Official. Also follow Memeland, Stakeland, and our co-hosts and our guests. And we'll see you again next week.
Thanks.